Hi, Chris.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are just building for quorum here. Hi, Marcus.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
No worries, no worries. We're still building to our number here. Hoping that Stephanie will be able to join us as well.
Yeah, she said she would be a little late, but she should be with us, so hopefully not too late.
Yeah, and she is stepping up to be here. There was a little bit of understandable confusion about subcommittee assignment, as I think she's sort of doing double duty now, and also is willing to join us to make sure that we hit our minimum so that we can move forward and take action.
Well, in the meantime,
please.
Given that we don't have our, our customary background music, at least not yet, I'll just indulge in taking this opportunity to introduce to you all my colleague, Joanna Lowry, who is on today's call. She's going to be working with me a little bit in the site over the next couple months. So Joanna, this is the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee of the RJOB, CEF, Joanna, and if you wanted to maybe say a few words while we wait.
Sure. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. Chris has filled me in on all the great work you all have been doing, so I'm excited to see in what ways I can engage and be helpful. I've been with the BI a few years now. Before that, I was involved in youth programming with young people who are in the justice system. So again, I'm just happy to be here, and any way I can be helpful, let me know.
Thank you very much. Yeah, enthusiastic about your being here, and also in particular your background experience with our Youth Advisory Council and the work that we're wanting to do with that. I think it'll be really valuable to have you here for that discussion.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I think maybe it's just mood building. I was revisiting the opinion that came from a Court of Appeal reversal of a 4 co-defendant homicide case. And it was on Batson Wheeler grounds. It was on there being some race-based misconduct or discriminatory impact in jury selection. And I think it was just reminding me about what this can look like in the courtroom, and why it's so important for us to be taking action, because when policies are meted out there, it can be pretty ugly. I was going to just get one of these snapshots to taking this time to be seeing, wow, that was really out of control. So maybe if I can pull up this clip, I will. Yeah, so this is a quote from that trial. Prosecutor is asking questions of prospective juror and talking about, well, you'd have to agree that Richmond is a dangerous place, and that it's altogether one where violence is regular to occur. So prosecutor, in explaining why this was appropriate questioning, says, no matter what these defense attorneys say, the unfortunate truth is Richmond is often a trap to those who are socioeconomically deprived. It's not a community of hope, it's a community of murder. Oh my gosh. Just hearing that, reading it, thinking, yeah, it's important that we have policies and practices in place to try to avoid that type of rhetoric. And I think as we normalize these discussions that we're having here, it becomes all the more obviously unacceptable to have that type of coded, barely coded language. There's another choice quote that I just thought I'd share. We're still waiting for our full quorum. Right, sometimes this stuff gets me even more motivated. Like, yeah, we gotta do something right now. This one.
While we wait, I'll just say that I did go ahead and change the invite for next month to November 15th at 3, based on the responses I got from our poll.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, this is questioning of, I mean, how relevant is this to what we're doing? But right, I'm sharing this group and we've got a minute, so hopefully it's also stirring folks to feeling like we got to do something. This is question of prospective juror. In general, your support for Black Lives Matter, do you agree or do you disagree with that type of behavior? That is destroying other people's property. Right, what is the target of this questioning? What is the goal to get arise out of a prospective juror and somehow have them be disqualified for saying that's not accurate? It's not what this group's about. Well, it's remarkable that it resulted in a reversal of convictions in a 4 co-defendant homicide case that took years literally and was undone due to this bad action, which it's a blessing. I see it that the Court of Appeal noticed that this had happened, but it goes unchecked all the time. And it's just one kind of entry point, decision point that is reflective, I think. And if we have more data, some of the things that we're building, part of what we're hoping to do in this meeting is built toward having data sharing. And the more that it's out there, the more that we're able to put better practices into place. We're still building for our quorum, and I feel that we can do introductions together as we're building. Joanna, I appreciated you introing or welcoming yourselves to us, or boy, my language there. I'm meaning glad you're here, and you said hi, and hi to you. I'm Jeff. I'm with the Public Defender's Office. I'm also with the Racial Justice Coalition Steering Committee member. And I'm gonna hand off and just intro to Ronell.
Ronell Ellis, Field Operations Coordinator for Healthwise 360 Reentry Network.
Thanks, Ronell. Let's see. How about Marcus? Hi, Marcus.
Hi, everyone. Marcus Walton, Director of Communications of County Office of Education, representing Superintendent Lynn Mackey.
Thanks, Marcus. Chris, you were saying hello for a second, but just maybe another moment.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Chris James, Racial Justice and Wellbeing Associate with the W. Haywood Burns Institute. That's a new title because we changed titles a little while back, so I'm not used to saying it, but that sort of describes what I do.
I think it sounds good. Hopefully the title sounds good. Monique, hi.
Hi, I'm Monique Tate with the Office of Reentry and Justice, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Glad you're here with us. Emil,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emma Bates. I am representing the public here in this public engagement meeting. I'm also a Bay Area educator of 23 years, and as of very recently, the mother of a young multiracial son who is currently incarcerated in Contra Costa.
Glad you're with us, Emil. Carrie, hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet everybody. I am Carrie Cohen. I am a consulting manager at Resource Development Associates, RDA, and ORJ. The fine folks over there recommended that I try to join this meeting every once in a while because some of the initiatives that we have are overlapping. And so I just wanted to kind of call and check in and listen to what you guys are doing and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts.
Fantastic. Glad you're with us.
Thank you.
And just as soon as audio connects, I'm going to be saying, hooray! Stephanie's with us. Pulling through extra credits. You are major points right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm on my phone right now, so I'm gonna stay off video.
Okay. Okay.
Or stay, yeah.
I'm glad that you've been able to join us, and much appreciated. So let me turn to, for a second, Nicole, and invite to say hi.
Hi, Nicole Popchek. I'm also with the Office of Reentry and Justice and staff to Rjob. And the sun is in my face, so I'm sorry. Can't see myself.
No worries at all. Thank you. And I think we're ready to move here. We've got our quorum, and we're going to really try to roll as quickly as we can with attempting to also do justice to the conversations and not spread ourselves too thin, but also being aware that we're kind of precarious with the quorum. So let's just make sure we use our time and get to the points that we can. Okay. Before we get to anything else on, yeah, and I'm just seeing the chat that what Chris was saying, what Emily's writing. Yeah, the personal experience being touched by it makes it all the more urgent. Yeah, beyond. So that grounds us also. We've got the agenda in front of us, or at least it was sent out in the chat, and I'm going to put it back up here, sharing screen, so everyone has it up here. Let's jump to public comment before we get to the rest of agenda, and we'll just move.
Can I do an announcement real quick?
Please,
Just now that we've formally begun on the ORJ side. So I just wanted to let everyone know. So we did get confirmation of the clerk of the board that if we want to do reassignments within subcommittees, which I know impacts this group, that will need to be done at the full body. So Chris will work offline to figure out, obviously this specific subcommittee, but others, if there needs to be some shuffling around or reassignments or removals of members from specific subcommittees, that we would get that agendized for the next quarterly meeting on, I think it's November 4th. And what else? And then I know it's at the end, but I have anticipation that we won't get to it. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I had my headphone was talking to me saying battery low. That we are rescheduling November's subcommittee meeting to Monday, November 15th at 3 p.m. And so for those of you that are on the invite, you should have that change in your inbox right now. That's all I had. Just wanted to specify that.
Thanks, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
So let me jump to public comment. If there is any, please. Emil, I saw you on mute.
Yeah, I guess I have a question slash information to share. Just looking over the agenda, and I don't know if this is more appropriate later on in the agenda or is better with public comment, but I always feel bad about interrupting the flow of the conversation.
This is a time. It's good for you to take the moment, please.
I see that there is discussion of having listening sessions with the public to share data, which makes me ecstatic, but it also gives me pause, because currently right now, since I've shared my own personal experience, the attorney representing my son is asking for the DA's office to share data, and DA O'Connell, who I believe now is the second in charge since Venus Johnson has left, is pushing back and doing everything he can to not share data. So I'm a little bit perplexed as to how the DA's office and then RJOB, these two entities, have such different messaging about what we're doing with the data and the transparency or lack thereof of it. So I was just wondering how much communication takes place between these committees for the RJOB and the DA's office. And I was also wondering what data it is that the data committee is preparing to share at these listening centers. Is it something from the Vera Institute? Is it data collected some other way? Those were my public comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mehul. I think, well, let me step back for a second. Chris, I saw you on mute.
Yeah, so I think, number one, I mean, I really appreciate that question. I mean, I think that's the right question, especially if, you know, especially given the experience that you're having. I would say the data subcommittee has directly requested some data from the DA's office. And essentially what we have gotten are, or is a lot of feedback about why, you know, there's not a current database or case management system that allows for that data to be pulled. And so while the Vera report is forthcoming, and while the data subcommittee is requesting data from the DA's office, that data definitely will not be shared because we haven't gotten. The DA's office has responded to say, we believe in what you're asking for, and if we could get it to you, we would, but we cannot for these reasons, and we will continue to work on it. And so the data, most of the data that that the community will see, and if Nicole, if you don't mind, if you could put the link for I mean, I think that our link, or that the county link, went live during a previous subcommittee meeting. So there's a link now to data that has been put together by the ORJ and the data subcommittee, thanks to probation participating, right, and sharing data about who's coming into the system, as well as I think just Denise compiling data that is shared at the Department of Justice level publicly, and also sharing that. So I think that's all we have right now. It's not all that we plan to get, but we wanted to share what we have while, you know, working with all of the various justice agencies to secure more of that information and to get it as soon as possible. So there has been a direct request, again, to the DA asking for data. And I think the response that we got was, we appreciate the request. We think it's the right request, but we don't have what it takes to get it to you right now, and we will work on it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there may be some action steps being taken on their end to shore up their data needs.
Thanks, Chris, for giving that context for what's going on. And maybe I'd take the second to further respond, Emil, to what you were saying about, well, how does this actually interact with the DA's office and the oversight body, and there's different messaging. I think it's fair to say that there is some inconsistency there. And in terms of power, hierarchy, how exactly does this work? Who's accountable to whom? District attorneys elected. This is a space that I think matters, even though we don't have the power to control the actions of any of the different parties here. I think people are participating because they feel like, first, I believe that people feel in their various departments that these principles matter, but also because there's a joint community expectation that that people will participate in this in good faith. So I think you're asking questions at a meeting like this can put pressure, just like there are times where I had felt compelled to say, it seemed to me that certain things in the county or even within my own office within a time, there needs to be accountability here. And this is a space where at any of these county board meetings, by saying out loud the things that you're saying, this is a problem, the data hasn't been presented, that gets into meeting minutes, it builds, and it would be further information that would come to a listening session to share the information. But that's not me trying to justify as much as I think is explain as I understand how these things are working together and still matter, even though there is real inconsistency. And I don't want to be apologizing for that because I don't think it's acceptable.
Yeah, thank you. I just, a data expert for the DA's office has presented a report making claims that there are not racial disparities in arrests and prosecutorial decision-making. So that just really concerns me. It makes me wonder, are we in this together? Are we collaborating, or are we working at odds with one another?
I appreciate you bringing that issue and your perspective to the discussion. And we'll any further feedback from our subcommittee on what Imilo's brought to us, or other public comment that anyone would want to offer at this time?
I just want to really quickly echo what you just said and thank Imilo for, having the guts to bring that to this meeting and to whatever other spaces, she may feel, led to bring it to, because it's an important, these are definitely things that I think a lot of us wouldn't hear about otherwise. So, that's information that hopefully, we can use to make sure that we're holding every agency that's supposed to be a part of this process accountable.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just offer another moment for public comment if there's anything that anyone wants to bring before we move to the rest of the agenda. Okay, we're pretty informal here. We have been, especially since it's a pretty small group. So if there's something that anyone wants to bring later, I think we have space to do that. We won't be overly rigid in saying public comment is passed. So if there's something that feels like, that reminded me and I want to bring it up, I invite anyone to do that. Okay, so approving the record of action. Oh, please.
Record of actions from the September 9,
No.
2021
Was that coming through?
Subcommittee meeting.
Sorry,
Attachment
I think
1,
that's my audio.
CPG 4-6.
I stopped that. This is a technique I've started using because I'm just like burnout visually and having things read to me. More information than necessary, but that was explaining what was going on there. So approving record of actions, I think we need to just roll through that so that we can memorialize what happened before. And then afterward, let's talk about maybe reshuffling the agenda to make sure that we hit when we need to. Nicole, I'm seeing, what are you saying? Was there, I was over interpreting. Look, no, I'm just gonna keep moving. We're good.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So record of actions from last time, I'm gonna put them back up. Hopefully this isn't too dizzying to see me scrolling down. Okay, notes from before, who is here, who is not. Let's just make sure we got that all right. Looks correct to me. Moving right along, folks are with me. As I recall it, vast majority was spent on our capacity fund guidelines. And we did good work there. But this is capturing just what had happened before. To be continued. There we are. I'm rolling through pretty quickly. Okay. We just rolled through very quickly, and we've had it before too. So anyone have anything that they would want to correct from the notes from last time, the record of actions? Okay, seeing nothing. Is there a motion to approve the record of actions from last time?
Motion to approve notes.
Thanks, Renell. And a second? I'll second that motion. And is there any discussion on the motion before we take a vote? Hearing no discussion, I think we're ready to take that vote.
Okay, Jeff,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Stephanie,
If I abstain, will it still pass?
yeah, if want to put who am I going to put on the spot? Renell. If Renell says yes, which I'm assuming he's going to,
Who's your
yes,
motion?
you can abstain.
You know, you never know. You never know.
You're always keeping us guessing, Renell.
Renell.
I move to approve.
Okay,
yes.
motion
Yes.
carries.
All
Motion carries.
right, we got there. So that behind us, let's move ahead to what's next. And I would propose that we jump over our JJCC updates, despite the fact that they are essential, unless there's like, okay, super short thing we all need to know. I just know that we have missed some of the details that we need to get to on this data subcommittee listening session. So I'm inclined to jump there. Does everyone feel okay with that? Please.
Real quick, Jeff, what I would say, I think what is good for the group to know is that the DJJ realignment subcommittee passed a plan for realignment for young people, and we passed the plan unanimously. And so I think that's worth noting.
Absolutely it is. Thank you for bringing that update. Is the next step to finance committee, or do you know where that goes?
Right, Emily, anything to add?
Hello?
Hi, Cheryl. I think you joined us. But I was just jumping to Stephanie. I was wondering if you know what's the next step after the subcommittee on the realignment spending.
They're going to be presenting it to the board of supervisors. I'm not sure if they're going to the PPC first, but
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be going to the supervisors.
Got it. Well, thank you for that update. That is notable, and that it was unanimous. I'm hoping that seems like it's a good thing that folks were on the same page with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for us to really be creative and innovative in how we're supporting young people and changing the ways in how we support young people. And so, I mean, the draft is public right now. It's in the agenda notes. And so people can definitely take a read of it. And then there's also going to be opportunities in the future to get more community input.
Fantastic. Well, it seems like that's positive progress, and I am glad that you were here, of course, and also that you took the moment to give us that update is good. Anything more on JJCC, or should we jump to the next? Good. Okay. we're rolling to data subcommittee, listening session, sharing data publicly. The info is there. Well, at least some important info is there, not everything that's needed, but also we gotta use what we have, build community understanding, awareness of what's there. And then I'm also hoping that that will build for people who are showing, participating, to say, what else are we not getting here? We need more. And then that is responding to, right, that the process is responding to community saying, we don't have everything we need. Because there are some roadblocks that are already here in terms of the content. And I think one of the ways moving forward is to try to put out there what we have and have that role to the demand for more. Our numbers just changed. Are we still good? 1, 2, 3, 4. We are. Okay. I just saw my little screen change there for a second, but I think we're still able to move. So let me look at, we have these 3 points. I want to start with host facilitators. Can we go there? Chris, what do you think? I want to also check in with you on what do you think is most productive way to move forward? I was thinking of starting with host facilitators, but what's your sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I just wanted to provide just a brief update really quickly on this. So
please.
Because some of this happened in the data subcommittee, and so just wanted to bring everyone else up to speed, right? So the data subcommittee, who you will be co-leading, co-hosting, co-managing this session with, they've already chosen Shayla to host in place of the chair, Becky Jjcc. So Shayla is going to be sort of the representative from the data subcommittee. She's already gotten word from folks there in terms of their interests, and is saying we should probably try to do this as soon as we can because people do seem interested in it, and that her early sense is their early evening, like something around 6 p.m. Would be the most desirable time, at least from what she's heard so far. So just wanting to sort of throw that update into the mix as we sort of talk about these various items under sort of coordinating the listening session, and we'll turn it back over to Jeff and hosts and facilitators.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, having Shayla in place as representative from data is fantastic. I think folks here know Shayla, and she's in our steering committee, the Racial Justice Coalition, and I know we'll be able to hold the conversation as facilitator. She's super solid in that. So whoever partners with her from our subcommittee will be in good shape, no doubt. And I'm remembering back to, was it comment from my fellow steering committee member, my sister Cheryl, who was bringing up the point of, yeah, white guy leading this conversation, maybe not so much, which that lands well with me. I think that makes sense, is that it's important that we all participate in the conversation, but in terms of who is facilitating community conversation on this data, I think to have someone who is not from privileged caste, is that book is just talking about recently cast, and someone who's benefiting, white guy, from a lot of the racial injustice in this system, which is a way of inviting other member of this subcommittee to lead with Shayla in presenting the information. I'll just also have a little like sub part there, and Chris and I were talking this over of there can be these different roles of someone's up there explaining the chart, right, and maybe that's this technical point, but then there's this other aspect of okay, what is this guy talking about? And what does this information mean to us? And what more do we need to know? And that's the part I'm really talking about, having someone else from the subcommittee facilitate, not as much, let's break down the chart, as much as walking through the information and the questions and the priorities with community. So putting that out there, and I'll say, at the risk of inviting someone who is not offered, it's always a little risky. Renell, my mind was going to you if you felt like you might be interested and available to fill that role for our committee, to be co-facilitating with Shayla at the listening session.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
Yep. Got your back.
I feel that. And I think, let me just supplement, after you've graciously said yes, that I can commit to doing at least one, if not more than one, kind of prep session together of what are you feeling like you want to say? What are the things that I might be able to assist with, or anyone else from the subcommittee, so that we feel like, you know, we got our game plan, and that kind of not in the dark of what's going to happen, and just feel like we're prepared, that everyone's comfortable. But that'd be terrific. So thank you. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, me too. Right, happy to jump on a call or a series of calls to make sure that, you know, and I'm not assuming you need any help, right? But if you feel like you need, you know, some coaching up, or you want to go over things just to make sure that you're comfortable, absolutely, you know, willing and able to help out with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Renell. And if there's a way that we can do it all together with Shayla, and it's kind of like, all right, we're brainstorming together how this will work, and then it's kind of one thing. If the scheduling doesn't work that way, then so be it, and we'll just kind of put our notes together. But one way or another, I think it's a major step to have who are our leads, and knowing that Renell and Shayla will be our leads in the facilitation of that. It allows us to kind of take next steps of how we'll help support them in getting the info we need to run the meeting, or facilitate it. Let's say schedule, moving to that, that I had certainly mentioned when we were getting started with this process, that I am a fan of, when it's a community event, having something outside of business hours. Despite the fact that that's become more complicated by my being a daddy in the most recent 2 years. That said, I do feel like if you're going to have community input, it's really cutting out a major slice of folks that need to be able to participate by having it during the workday, because then, right, there's just people that are sweating, working, that aren't able to join, and that seems like an unfair limitation for, especially if we're trying to capture a broad swath of community opinion. And yeah, we'll lose some folks too, by not doing during workday. But I think to capture, if we can agree to something like 6 p.m. on a given day, that I think that makes sense from my perspective. And when Chris and I were talking, just prepping for this, we were kind of floating potential dates just to get the ball rolling, which isn't that it's been decided, but sometimes put something out there and then see where it goes. So we were floating the week of December 6th as option 1, and then the week of January 10 as option 2. Mindset being anything before December 6th, probably too soon to really get it together. Anything between December 6th, the week of December 6th, and January 10th is like, I don't know, uncertain holiday, whatever time. And January 10 is that week is usually when things start picking up again in terms of events and getting meaningful participation. So just kind of putting that to this subcommittee to see if anyone's like, I know I can tell you right now, this week does not work. or this one would be much better or something like that. So we just get a little indicator. And I think the idea is we would then try to compare notes with the data subcommittee to say, this works a little bit better for us. We could also, after this meeting, try to do the doodle thing, which has its merits, but I just thought I would raise it verbally with folks at the meeting as we're sitting here. Anyone have any opinions on those two prospective weeks and also the concept of an after work hours meeting?
So Jeff, if I could, this is difficult. And I guess a couple of questions. Were we planning to do this virtually? Were we planning to do it in person?
My sense has been virtually, that yes, that's what I'm envisioning. And I don't know, Chris, if there's some more context you can give to that, but that's what I had in mind, at least at this point.
Yeah, I think potentially, that could be, I suppose, up for discussion. But definitely my sense was, because these meetings are all virtual, that meeting would be virtual. And if not, obviously that there need to be that additional step of securing a physical space, which might throw every date you just heard off. Among, sort of making sure that everybody's going to be safe, and everyone's going to be allowed to enter, and that all of the health considerations of, this time would be observed. So
Can I ask, and that might help answer the question that you had about virtually, is this intended to be a CEF subcommittee meeting that's public? Or is it a listening session that's independent of this subcommittee?
I would think the latter, that it's independent. Especially if we're doing it outside of work hours, I think it's going to be really hard to have it as an official meeting in that way. I want to really encourage that we would have full participation from our subcommittee, but I also feel like
Because full
also it can kind of
participation
eat into the
would
time, right?
full participation of this subcommittee would constitute a public meeting of the subcommittee. That's why I'm wanting to ask. So if you do have everyone present, then it becomes and that's fine. The reason I bring that up is that there is a mandate for public meetings to meet virtually, at least as of right now. And I anticipated that mandate will be a subsequent mandate come December, January as well.
I wouldn't, in light of that information that, like I should have known, right? Like that's not a new thing. It's just something that I wasn't thinking about until you just said it.
Yeah.
I would recommend that this be considered a special meeting or session, just because the listening session that the CEF did in the past, we were trying to have like the first hour of the meeting be public comments, an elongated public comment section to hear from folks. And then we need to get to our agendas, and we need people to wait until we're asking for public comment to speak. And quite frankly, and obviously, that does not work, right? In terms of getting community input and making folks feel as we definitely want to make them feel like we value their presence and their input and their feedback. So I think, having a space for 2 hours that is for the quorum and notice purposes considered a meeting, but is actually a space that allows people to discuss things without needing to stick to our agenda, or else we have to wait until next month to do whatever we need to do, would probably be the preferred method.
That makes sense to me too. Stephanie, I see your hand. Marcus, I know you were kind of midstream there. Was there something you wanted to add before I turn to Stephanie?
Well, the reason that I asked about virtual versus in person, I think that a virtual meeting, if it were in person, I would have suggested that we hold a date, time, and an evening, unfortunately. But if we're virtual, I believe that we can still hold the evening meeting with the recording available, et cetera, for other members of the community who may not be able to attend at that time. That was going to be my suggestion. And thanks for all of those clarifications.
Absolutely. Stephanie.
Yeah, I was just going to say something similar to what Chris was saying. I do think that this needs to be a special meeting. For one, honoring people's questions and time and giving them an opportunity to giving folks an opportunity that haven't been involved in this process to really have meaningful conversation around this. And so I think it's important that we don't consider this just a regular meeting.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah. Fully
And
agree.
also having it during the evening so people can attend.
Cool. All right. It seems like we're getting general feeling of consensus or pretty close to consensus on this. Other input on kind of the whole concept, the virtual, the dates that we're talking about, the time that we're talking about.
So your guys' regularly scheduled meeting is on the week of December 6th. So that might be something that you want to maybe have the special meeting on December 6th and cancel possibly your regular scheduled meeting, just something to think about if you choose that week. And I'm not seeing anything on December 10th that I can see that would be a conflict. Actually, part of that is nothing's been scheduled on the calendar yet for 2022. So what is that? The second week of January?
Yes.
So that would also be your guys' normally scheduled week for this group if you continue that cadence on, which is the second Thursday of each month.
Yeah. Well, maybe we don't yet iron out that detail. There's a part of me that's feeling like, well, we could have kind of like an abbreviated subcommittee meeting that's kind of more or less a prep session for the actual data meeting that would occur potentially, because we probably need to do a little bit of check-in prep stuff. And then I'm also aware of not trying to add an hour to the same week when people are already carving out time. So yeah, my instinct is maybe we hold on that decision because I think it'll be a little bit complicated, but at least to target these weeks as ones where we might schedule and then see where data subcommittee says on that. Yeah.
I think that sounds good. And I'm not here to make decisions for you, just throwing out that if you were going to have it the week of December 6th, the data subcommittee will meet this month on the 28th, right? So the tail end of this month, which would give you, less weeks than you might think you have to prep for the actual listening session, right? Because I mean, we'd want to hear from them and maybe get, some sort of vote or at least some consensus there. So that's at least the 28th when that would happen. So we'd be talking about roughly about 5 weeks after that. So maybe with Ronell, we're having like 2-3 phone calls in the next month to make sure, again, if you feel like you need that prep, that we can do that, or January 10th allows you time for that feedback loop to take shape and to be able to execute. So pros and cons there. You don't have to go either way. I think the data that we need to share, we have, right? Like some of the stuff is already ironed out. So it's not the biggest lift in the world if we need to do it the week of December 6th, just wanting to point that out to folks.
Thanks, Chris, for us to be thinking on in this. Stephanie, I see your hand.
Yes, Chris and I were like on the same wavelength today. But what I was gonna say, I do think it would be better to wait. I'm also thinking about past listening sessions that we've done, and they've been in-person events, but also thinking about how are we creating access to information and really creating a way that's more creative. Thinking about ways to present the information that's more creative than just presenting graphs and things like that. And how can we make it a little bit more interactive for the community to be involved in? And I think that would take a little bit of time to build out. And so, yeah, thinking about how we can just make it really plain for the community, because I think being in these committees, we also get used to talking in a lot of jargon and acronyms. And so it would be, I think part of our role is to really be intentional in how we're thinking about how we're sharing information with the community.
And on that, thank you so much for pointing all of that out, Stephanie. There was a method to the madness in developing this agenda, right? So you see the first bullet point under this is partnering with community-based organizations to structure and coordinate this event, in part because of what Stephanie just said, right? So being able to work with folks who are hosting, community stakeholders all the time, or having, community meetings or CBO meetings, to get their input and to really partner with them, right? Not just to say, hey, can you tell people we're doing this, right? But how do we work with you to structure something that's really going to be effective in presenting the information? That's another one that's going to take probably more than 5-6 weeks to get done. So just a thought there in terms of the dates.
Yeah, I think the scales are tipping toward January. I'm feeling it. And right on the supporting orgs front that Chris, you and I talked about, I feel that the anchor orgs for our Racial Justice Coalition Steering Committee could be starting points, as well as all of our here individual orgs. But right, our steering committee is represented with SCIU, California Nurses, Safe Return Project, Immigrant Rights Alliance, Public Defenders Association. So we could be reaching out to our networks and trying to see either if it's co-sponsorship or those are starting points for me, because right, I'm here as representative of coalition, but I'm also thinking that this could be a moment for us to just kind of brainstorm additional orgs, persons that we would want to approach to try to be in partnership in this.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. I'll take yes. I've been accepting yeses. I got a simple from Ronell too. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. Okay.
And
Can I
correct.
ask one question that might sound silly, but special meeting, is it a special meeting for CEF, or is it a special meeting for the data subcommittee or for the full body? So
I think it could very well end up being a full body special meeting, because you'll have two subcommittees there. In some, I would guess that Becky, as the chair, even though she, won't necessarily have a role in facilitation, will probably be present. I would guess that Jeff, unless, of course, Daddy Duty calls, would be available, even though he wouldn't be particularly hosting. So you probably would end up with, if a couple of other people on either subcommittee or both show up, then you have quorum for both of those, which
Right.
I'm guessing would trend towards quorum of the full body.
Got it. Thank you.
That makes sense to me too. Thanks, Chris and Nicole. Steph, you were saying.
And I don't know, Ronell, if I can't remember if you're with the Reentry Success Center or the network, but I think it would be good to get both of them involved in this in some way.
Yeah, I'm network, East County.
And I mean,
County.
that's also outreach too, to get some of the folks that we want to hear from in the space.
Yes. Ronell, were you going to say something?
Well, no, I mean, sounds like a winner. As far as the outreach is concerned, I guess, you can get the West County involved as well with that, and just, let us know how you want us to approach it. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to put it together and make sure that we canvass what we need to do in order to get folks engaged,
Right on. Yeah. Perfect. What I'm kind of envisioning for each of us would be that we would go to our respective groups between now and the next meeting. I know that our steering committee has a regular standing thing, and then I would go to them and say, what do you think about us supporting this and potentially co-sponsoring, and if not co-sponsoring, activating our networks, and that each of us in turn could go to our groups and say that between now and when we come back, and then report when we come back next time, which will be the 15th of November, not the 4th, that we can say, this is what my group's saying, and this is what we would need, or this is what we can offer, basically just come back to build from there.
Got it.
Cool. Let's see, was there other, just in maybe brainstorming on, Stephanie, what you were saying with creative ways to present the information, that definitely resonates with me. And I know with the old data from the 2015, 2016, that I, over years, have kind of shaped this PowerPoint presentation that kind of walks through it. And that was helpful. It was through the experience of presenting the charts, I don't know, for a couple of years first, and being like, this is not landing. And then kind of being like, this is 4 times as much. And look at like this kind of, you can have little icons instead of the chart, right? Which is like this many students in the classroom, that kind of thing where you can see as a representative of like, okay, I'm seeing it now. And having some sort of, that took a long time to do, but maybe there's something like that is guiding the presentation and the message, because I think when people start just off the cuff going through the charts, it gets like gobbledygook. But if you were like, I thought about, this is the 2 sentences I'm going to explain this chart, and I really worked on those words, it can come across. So it takes a lot of planning, but I agree that if it's going to be meaningful, it's got to be thought out like that, because it's just going to not be worth the time if we don't have it understood.
Yeah. And I think one of the things to think about also is like, what is it that we want from the community too? And what do we want to give them? And what is it that we want to hear from them? And what are some of the ways that we may be able to create a space where it fosters conversation also? So not even just presenting the data, but how do we also have more conversations? And I mean, that could be having different breakout groups through Zoom to do that. I think there's opportunity where we can be creative in how we're doing it. And also, what are some other things that we can pull into this? Since this is a special session, we don't necessarily have to be very, I mean, we don't have to be so rigid in how how we do things. So are there even ways that we can pull in, I don't know, some spoken word or something, just so we can change things up a little bit?
I was waiting for that because you have a smile on your face, so I knew you had something in mind. You probably have more to say than just spoken word, so don't be shy about it. Just go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, Stephanie, be careful what you ask for. You may be in the forefront. just warning.
Stephanie might have some verses ready.
Tread lightly.
Yeah, but just how are we just engaging a little bit differently? Yeah, like poll everywhere or how things like that, just using different methods to get folks to participate and engage people. What's the board that we've been using? I forget what it's called now.
Jamboard.
Yeah, Jamboard. Yeah.
I'll just say I've had some pushback from the county on Zoom's breakout sessions because it's a public meeting. I'm all for it. I like them, but I have had some pushback on that. If you think about breakout sessions, you're a public member joining, but you can't go to each Zoom room. Just something to think about.
I mean, one way we can maybe get around that is think about like a World Cafe type of thing, where everybody does actually get to go to different breakout rooms, but they're only in there for a certain amount of time. I mean, there may be ways we can get around it, but Cheryl has her hand up too.
Yes, exactly. I saw that too. Cheryl.
Okay, so I'm in appointment, so I can't talk much, but hola. Great. Hi, thank you.
I don't know what to go anywhere, but just do your thing.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere. Here's my question, and thank you, Stephanie, because it sparked my main question is not only what do we want to get from the public, but why. I think the main question in the one that the public will be asking is why are we giving them the data? Why are we giving it to them? What's the purpose behind it? We may know, but I think the number one reason that, I know my purpose in bringing it up. And it's not just transparency, right? Because it's such an overused word. It's, we want to be transparent, or we want to know, and we want to dispel the myths of what's going on in the criminal legal system. No, I think that we have to have a reason and a narrative. And that, Jeff, will help answer the question on how the information is presented. That will help develop the slide deck, the PowerPoint. There's a way to deliver data that doesn't always have to be a graph. It doesn't always have to be, it could be a pictorial, or as Stephanie mentioned, in words. We just did this for the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors in talking about National Disability Employment Awareness Month on Tuesday, right? And it was films. It was filming different people with disabilities talking about the importance of providing work opportunities for people with disabilities. And maybe it's filming different people who've been impacted by this criminal legal system and what it means to them, their experience in this system, and that data has a face behind it, right? That is more than just numbers. And I think that that's, for me, and of course, I'm on this oversight body, but not this subcommittee, even though I come to these meetings. I think it's putting faces behind those numbers, and the public, that's what they want. They want to know what's behind the numbers. And I think that that's our obligation, is to paint a picture behind the numbers. So if nothing else, that is what we are trying to get, not just the regular public, but the criminal legal system the officials to understand, every officer, every sheriff's deputy, every DA, every public defender. We want them to see the people who they're either prosecuting, jailing, defending, every probation officer. We want them to see that there are people behind those numbers. These aren't just numbers. So that there's a story behind each person. So that's my piece. And I think that we can present this information in a way that conveys that story. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that perspective and kind of how essential that this is. I'm gauging where we are with time. I would love to be able to spend at least the last 15 minutes, if not a little bit more, talking about our Youth Advisory Council agenda item, especially as we have Joanna here with us and maybe able to have some input in that. I'll say that there definitely needs to be more on the brainstorming of our goals in this. I think it'll probably take a little work between now and the next session, knowing that that's like essential foundation to really move forward entirely. We need to know why we're doing it, but I think we've planted seeds with that, and explaining it in a coherent way that it's really absorbed. I'm also thinking, as we're just talking about, if we can have responses from community in terms of what in here needs to change from community perspective. You're seeing some of these numbers. What are these numbers? If you had to say, like, this is the most unacceptable, or these are the things that we feel like we need to move these numbers. And then also, what more information do we need? What do you feel, representatives of community, that is not here and that we need to know? Because that can push to get the more information, and it can also push for policy change, because we're responding to the community that's saying, we saw this stuff and now we are demanding some sort of action in response to it. So I feel like we had some forward movement there in terms of how we're going to take action here. And with that little wrap up, if I can invite anyone, if they have something more to say on a listening session before we try to transition our last 15-20 minutes to Youth Advisory Council.
I'll just remind everyone really quick, your next steps were to reach out to those organizations that you have relationships with, to assess their interest in partnering, and not even just that, right? But everything that you just heard about in terms of how this should be structured, what they think would be most effective, how the information is presented, what stories we're telling, and if there's some input that they could provide to that. When we're talking about partnering with to structure and coordinate, that's what it can look like. If there's input to be gained, not just to say, hey, we're doing this, can you let people know? But we want your feedback in terms of how we can make this the most effective listening session we can. So remember to do that. I'll be remembering to reach out to follow up and make sure folks are doing that. But that's the type of partnership that we're looking for.
Thank you, Chris. Remembering our to-dos is important, and good facilitation. Thank you. And just as we're talking, and you were saying, Stephanie, about spoken word, that I'm like, we go to Dante Clark pretty often in the office, but I feel like his content, that could be the sort of like framing of the data that comes, or someone, I don't know, he's kind of like unique, amazing person, but I'm like, someone like him, and I'm like, who would that be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, actually, Dante could probably take the data and put it into something.
Right. If anyone could, he's brilliant. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be cool. Maybe he would be willing, and could have that kind of cut through the numbers and get it to emotion. Yeah. Okay. Well, brainstorm on that. Let us move to scheduling follow-up meeting with local youth regarding Youth Advisory Council. Orienting all of us, I think we know that this is one of our agenda items, is to be building to create a separate space, not this space, but its own advisory body to the Board of Supervisors that would be youth-led, and the decision makers would be young people. And that, what more does that look like? Well, we can't be deciding it ourselves, and we're kind of in this process of that. So Chris, can I ask you to help me here in terms of like, what are we envisioning to use this time and next steps?
So just to refresh everyone's memory, I know it's been a while since we've discussed this. Obviously this body, you know, and who's on it and how it's structured and with the county and the whole thing, we know that the RJLB is tasked with creating, you know, equitable policy and practice change, essentially, right, among youth and adult populations within the county. And if we're going to do that for young people need to be a part of that conversation, right? That means folks who might actually not be able to attend meetings like these because they're in school, or, you know, as well as transition age youth, right? So wanting to create a space, as Jeff was saying, so that young folks have that direct level of input and are driving the design of things that are being recommended or developed or created based on the work of this body to make for more equitable outcomes for them, right? We owe them that. So how do we structure that? How do we develop that? The conversation that we had been having at first was about trying to have another listening session. This one would be youth-led, right? So coaching up youth to host and lead a listening session for youth to say, would you participate in something like this? What would it need to look like? What would it need to have? How do we structure it? You know, what sort of resources, what do we do to create a space for you that you would actually participate in to get this done? And as opposed to thinking that we can just design something and say, hey, it's for a good cause, come do it. And so that's where we left the conversation. Had some individual conversations with Stephanie, with and other folks from RISE, as well as other you know, young people from the area, as well as Manuel from the BI, about how to develop this, and all of it was coming down to how do we get young people you know, in a meeting, whenever that meeting needs to happen, so that we can actually hear from them about how they would like to participate in this session that hopefully leads to the creation of and the formulation of a body. So that's essentially why this is back, wanting to restart that conversation and begin to do that in between meeting work, right? That's going to lead to the formation of this group, and I'll leave it there.
I was muted. Thanks, Chris. I feel like that helps orient of what we had envisioned and what needs to happen before we could try to take any sort of meaningful next steps. And I'm wondering if I could invite Joanna, if there is some relevant experience that you may have had that's analogous that could just inform, you know, if you have thoughts on what we might do from here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how in depth I should go, but one thought I had is maybe it'd be helpful to share some of the learnings that we've seen in different youth advisory councils in different counties in California. Some of the challenges, successes, pitfalls, I think that could be helpful in developing it in another jurisdiction. But that could be shared also with the young people that are going to lead this listening session, so that they can, you know, get some input from other young people on things that have been done in other counties. I mean, I can say off the bat, like, so there's two counties, Ventura and Santa Clara County, that have youth advisory councils that are outside of the collaborative spaces that are working on reform and transformation. And then LA County has used that method as well as having young people come to the collaboratives themselves. And I think LA County, I've seen it being utilized in a way that has so far been most, I'll say, successful in terms of like what has felt like true partnership and collaboration with young people. And some of the key aspects that have made that, I think, possible is by, one, they're being led by community-based organizations. So the young people are connected to youth workers who are there with them in the collaborative spaces. They're prepping them ahead of time, debriefing afterwards. So there's a lot of just kind of coaching up with other adults that they trust and have already known. And then there's stipends. So they're getting paid for their time and expertise. And then, yeah, I think that those two pieces have been key. And then also thinking through the ages of what does a young person mean, going all the way up potentially to 25. So it could be young people that have been in the system previously. And so there were some jurisdictions that were struggling with, for some young people, they're on the run 1 month and then they're, at home at the other, and it can be hard to keep them engaged in a monthly youth advisory council. And so just thinking through what makes the most sense for the council and that particular space. But yeah, so those are just some things that have come to my head right off the bat in terms of what we've seen in some of the different counties. But happy to go in more depth at some point or whatever would be helpful.
Thank you. I think that there's probably a wealth of information that's there that we're just like right at the tip of the iceberg. And some specifics that are there of stipend is a concept that we were talking about of what do incentives look like, and just starting to have that on our radar. And the general concept of having the essential support and training and preparation to allow for meaningful participation, and that it can't just be surface level, that we need to be able to have connection and preparation and digesting time after and all that. So for you to speak about that and being already in place in LA, I think gives us a mindset of like, that would be something to try to model here. I know that we're not going to be able to go into our full depth right now. We got about 10 minutes, and I'm just trying to orient where we'll go next. I think that we should at the very least have this on our agenda for next time, and maybe like advanced on that list of what we'll be talking about, because we're priming now and getting back into our lead thoughts or our lead work. Next steps with this. I am going to get off the microphone and wonder if there's anyone else who has thoughts.
Thanks for sharing, Joanna. And I may have missed where you're from or what organization that you're with.
Oh, I'm with the Burns Institute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have said
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
I don't really have that much to add because we only have a few minutes left, but wondering if we should try to schedule a meeting with some of the young people, young adults that we initially spoke with, so we can get some direction to at least have some type of a plan of how we want to move into 2022 going forward.
Yes, that makes sense as an essential if we're going to be getting to the listening session, and the listening session is going to be youth led, then there will have to be youth that we're talking to before we get to the listening session. So this is the order of things. Is it realistic that we could try to have such a get together conversation between now and November 15th? Is our next meeting date? Meaning talking to folks about like, what do you think about a listening session? That's what I'm saying. No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Well, yeah.
I'm thinking before the end of the year.
Okay.
So, and I'm also thinking about, so that kind of smaller group of people that we initially had a conversation with, not necessarily this group, but at least so we can think about how do we want to move into 2022. And we could maybe take some time to even not necessarily plan a listening session out, but plan how we want to plan. At least start thinking about what that can potentially look like for 2022 moving forward. And think about like how do we want to outreach for other young people to participate in the planning
Yeah,
of it.
steps. If it's going to be success, it's going to have a timeline and not just a date, and all the pieces to get there. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Stephanie, because I feel like when I brought this up before, you've been like, oh, well, school is starting, or this is happening, or that's happening, so maybe not right now, or maybe at some point. Do you have a sense of a good range of time between now and the end of the year where you think it might be the most feasible to try to have something like that? I'm not asking to, calendar it right now. I'm just curious if there's like a specific block of time that seems to make more sense than others.
Yeah. Maybe if we could try to do something for like the beginning of December, that could be good.
Okay.
I think with like school starting, some of the folks that were in that initial conversation have gone back because some of them were in college. Some of them have gone back to school. Some are still around, I think, because they're still doing virtual classes. But I also think that there's probably some other young folks we could probably pull into. And I think things are settling just a little bit. So.
Okay. I'm also just thinking as Joanna, you were talking about models in local other places. Santa Clara in particular is jumping out to me because it's close. And I know that in our community capacity fund progress, we had representatives or someone who had been through the experience in Alameda County, Jewel Legacy, kind of talking about this is how it came to be. And if there are links, persons you think, would be instructive to talk to about what that looked like and how that got together. I'm also thinking to join the folks that are going to be at this, our local thing, to kind of say, well, this is how we did it in the other place. I don't know if you have thoughts on who might be good to reach out to in that.
Yeah, I could definitely connect to, so it's Fresh Lifelines for Youth is the community-based organization that runs the Youth Advisory Council. So I could definitely connect to folks there. And then I have a couple documents, I think, of an interview with someone from Fresh Lifelines from Youth, maybe a couple of years ago, just asking questions about the Youth Advisory Council, and we documented it just to help with other spaces that might be engaging in this. So I can send that out to you all. So you can look over some of the kind of basics around when they developed the council to begin with.
Please, yeah, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Jeff.
Yeah, Cheryl, please.
Yeah, I just have this, and take it for what it's worth. I find that whenever there's a commission or a youth council or something like that, it's usually the same type of individual who gets a chance to participate. So the authenticity of the experience they bring, or the comments they bring, or the panel discussion is limited. And so I just want to make sure that we're being careful and very proactive and intentional in ensuring that this council is reflective of our communities all the way, and that we're not somehow being unintentionally biased against those children. We had this discussion early on when we talked about bringing children in and having them, chair a meeting, and we talked about how sometimes they don't like to come forward or speak in public. And sometimes we can unwittingly stack these councils with only those ones who are willing to come forward and not the ones who need to be on the council. So I think that it would behoove us to look at groups in our communities that are working with those youth who are reticent about being on councils and helping them see the value of that and how they can change their communities in a different way. And helping those who don't think their voices matter, make their voices matter, rather than those who step forward willingly and quickly because it looks good on a college application or looks good on some other way, because those are usually the ones who will step forward fast. And I tell you that because it was my daughter who brought it to my attention, who said that it's us high achievers. She's a high achiever. It's us high achievers who always get the opportunities. And it's not fair because it's the mediocre student. It's the student on the edge of not achieving at all, who needs the support, who needs the push, who needs the, we believe in you, we think you can do this, we'll be here to support you, who needs that opportunity. So I just want us to be intentional and maybe look for that one in the corner who's quiet, who doesn't think that they have the ability to have their voices heard, who have the ability to be the voice of their community, who needs to be on this council. That's all.
Yeah, agreed that it's going to take more than your standard, and it would take intentional and thoughtful, proactive outreach and something beyond the ordinary to really have this be meaningful for whoever's participating and for us to be having the action coming forward, right? So whoever's participating will really benefit and will benefit from having a diversified perspective that will be representative of the real change that needs to happen. Yes.
Thank you for lifting that up, Cheryl. And I do want to say too, that is one of the things that we talked about in the meeting and some of the young people brought up themselves.
Right on. We are at time. There's always more to say, but also let's end on time and all connect in the ways that we can between now and then. There is follow-up that we've already set out, and I know that we have the essential support from Burns and ORJ, and we're going to be able to get what we need to get done between now and then. I appreciate all of your energy, participation, thoughtfulness, shared wisdom here. So let's keep doing it. We will. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie, for joining.
Much appreciated. Bonus.
Sure. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.